Hi there guys, my name is John from ActiveJR.com, and in this video I'm going to be talking you through my top tips for getting the best out of the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. Now I've been using this watch for about 3 months now, and I've put it through its paces. I understand all the different things that need to be done with it, so hopefully you'll get a lot out of this video. So before we get started, if you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel, as it's really appreciated, and don't forget to press the bell button to get notified of when new videos come out. All the links for everything I mentioned in this video all appear in the section below, so check those out. Now some of the tips in this video also hold true for some of the other Garmin devices as well, so if you do find one that's useful, then that's great. So guys, thanks very much. Let's get straight into the video. First up is user profile. Now when you're using the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, you get a load of data going in through the various different sensors. Now this data relies on your user profile being set up correctly. So what you've got to remember is you've got to remember to set up a user profile, so your weight, your height, your date of birth, and all of those things are correctly entered. Now this helps drive things like calories burned and also your first beat metrics that come with the watch. Now one of my top tips is make sure that your weight is constantly updated. I'd probably update it maybe once a week or maybe every couple of weeks as your weight fluctuates, but this will certainly help when it's calculating calorie burn and all of those things. The next thing to look at is your heart rate zones. Make sure your heart rate zones are set to the right settings, and also as well that your resting heart rate is also accurate and inputted. One final thing to watch out for: if you are training with a power meter and it's connected to your watch, make sure your power meter zones are set correctly and also your FTP is done. Next up is apps and widgets. Now the Fenix 5 Plus comes with a load of different apps, and my top tips for using the apps is two very simple ones. First of all, make sure you reorder your apps so the ones you use the most feature at the very top, so you're not scrolling through the list of apps that are on the device. And also as well, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's this plus symbol here. If you click on that, it'll give you access to a load of more apps that you may not have known that were there. So remember to check those out and remember to use that top tip. Now when it comes to the widgets, it's exactly the same again. My preference is to have them in the order I would necessarily want to get quick access to, and I have it on my day. And then you can also remove and reorder if you want to do so, and that's simply done by following these instructions. Next up is data screens. Now the Fenix 5 Plus comes with a lot of different data points, and these can be presented in an activity on the data screens. Now, my top tip for using the data screens is, say you're going out for a run or you're cycling and you want to have a quick glance at the important data that you want to see, is to set up your watch before you go out for that activity. So you've got crucial information that you want to see at a quick glance on your wrist. You don't have to stop and mess around scrolling through the screen. I also then set up my other screens to show information that I might want to see in more detail if I've stopped, or if I've got more time, if I'm out riding on the bike and the road is quiet and I want to scroll through them screens. Now next up is battery life. In terms of the battery life, there's been a lot of comments and discussion on the Garmin forums about the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus in particular's battery life. Now there's probably some things that will need to be fixed by software updates, and I think they're starting to come out now and people are starting to see improvements, but there's still a lot of activity on one particular thread. So first of all, it's the backlight settings. When you are using the watch, there's obviously a backlight that comes on. Now my top tips is to set the backlight and for activities and for when you're using the watch on a smartwatch mode to these settings that are coming on the screen now. These settings will significantly help with the battery life. Now another tip for battery life is turn off those smart notifications. Now I don't personally have them turned on. The reason I don't is I don't find them particularly useful. You can't interact with them, you can't respond to them on the wrist, so I can't see much point. The reason why I turn them is because your watch and your phone will be constantly pinging each other, sending the data across, which will be using battery life. Now the other tip is turn off Wi-Fi. The only thing that the Wi-Fi is used for is for updating data to Garmin Connect. If, however, you've got your phone in range, then I can't see much use of this. My next tip is setting up those sensors. The Garmin Fenix 5 Plus series comes with a variety of different sensor support, from ANT Plus to Smart Bluetooth. Now, I'm not going to tell you which one's better to use because it's all down to personal preference and also what sensor you've got. One thing I am going to say is that it is really important, especially in my opinion, to name the sensors you're connecting to the device. Now, if you've got sensors which are personal to you, then it does have a benefit, but the biggest benefit is coming when you're using your watch in a gym that's got ANT+ or smart Bluetooth enabled equipment, such as say a watt bike. If you in a gym, there's say 10 of these bikes and you jump on one and you connect, then you go back in the gym again and use a different bike and you've got several different sensors. You're not sure which one you connect to. So you could be actually downloading someone else's data when they're on the bike and you're not actually getting the data that you want. So my top tip is when you get on a piece of equipment that you don't normally use all the time, such as a watt bike in a gym, rename that sensor as something that identifies that bike. So when you jump on again, you know it's the bike and the data that you're getting. Now moving on to the bands, everyone knows they're interchangeable, but my top tip with the bands are pretty simple. First of all, make sure you buy the bands that fit your particular watch. So in the case of the 5S or the 5X or the 5, they all come in different sizes. So make sure that you buy the right size band or it could become an expensive mistake. My other top tip as well, always remember that Garmin do sell the bands, but they're pretty expensive. There is third-party marketplaces like Amazon or eBay that do sell these bands and they're just as good quality. I've got several bands which I bought from Amazon and I've had no issue and I've used them quite often. So make sure that if you're looking to restyle your watch, you check out those marketplaces first to see if you can find something at a rather reduced price. Next up is music support. When the Fenix 5 Plus first come out, it only supported iHeartRadio and Deezer, and it was still pretty good, but now Spotify's been launched. So my top tip for music is use Spotify. You get a lot out of it and it works really well. However, you do need a premium account to be able to use Spotify with your Fenix 5 Plus. One other tip, and this is the most important one, if you've not got the right headphones to use with the watch, your experience is not going to be great. So if you are using it for to go out running and you've bought the wrong headphones or if they don't fit properly, then they're not going to work. So make sure when you are choosing your headphones, you don't necessarily go for a nice brand or a nice looking pair of headphones. Make sure you really test them out in the shop. Also make sure as well, especially if you're out running, these are going to be okay for when you're sweating, because the last thing you want is some over-ear headphones that when you're out running, that they become uncomfortable and make you really hot. Now, one other thing, just because a pair of headphones or earphones have got a good brand doesn't mean that they are the best for you. I bought a pair of MPOW headphones from Amazon for about £15 and these work really well. They stay in the ears and I've used them quite a lot. So make sure that you shop around, make sure you get the best headphones for you rather than the ones that look good. Next up is GPS support. Now, the Fenix 5 Plus also comes with Galileo support. One of the things that people don't know is you need to set up GPS individually for each sports profile. So say for instance you're out running, then you need to set up GPS with Galileo if you choose to do so. Same as if you went out cycling. So make sure if you're setting up an outdoor activity that you set it up for the right GPS settings, because all the settings are all individual to each sports profile. Next up is the optical heart rate accuracy. Now for me, I would always use a chest strap. However, if you do not want to go out and spend extra money, which you've already bought an expensive watch, another £50 to £100 could seem like a accessory that you don't really need when you've already got something on your wrist. With any optical HR sensor, you are going to have inaccuracies when it comes to wrist-based exercise or say cycling because of the vibrations, but you can do something about it in order to improve the accuracy. If you're going to do an exercise which involves the wrist or cycle or any activity where you want the optical HR sensor data to be as accurate as possible, just tighten your watch to a couple of more pins than you would normally do. And then when you complete the activity, then you can loosen it, because you don't want a tight watch in your wrist all day. The reason to do this, it stops the watch from moving around and it creates a better connection with your skin. Now moving on to maps and navigation. Last year's Garmin Fenix 5 series came with maps only on the Fenix 5X. However, this year maps are available across the entire range. And now Garmin have done a little bit to try and improve the map details. However, I still don't think they're there. And if you want better maps from Garmin, you need to pay for them. They're very expensive. Now my top tip is to install some third-party maps. There's a video coming above that shows you how to install some maps and at a fraction of the cost. And they work really well, especially for hikers. There'll be lots of detail on there, contours, and all of those great things. So check those out. Next up is watch faces. Now, I've done a video about my top 5 watch faces, and again, that's coming above now. But my top tip here is choose a watch face that's got very little animation. And the reason for this is 2 reasons. One, the battery life performance will be better because it's not having to constantly change. And secondly, if it's a big bloated watch app, then it may slow the watch down. And again, it will impact battery life, but it'll impact the performance of the watch itself. Now, my final tip is to make sure you update your watch. Now the watch comes with an auto update feature. However, it doesn't update things like maps or some other features on the watch. So the best thing to do is maybe once a month, plug it into your computer, fire up Garmin Express and see if there's any updates available. That way it makes sure that the watch is kept up to date and the latest bugs are squashed, and it'll improve your experience with the watch. Now, there is another option. You can install beta software. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to go into details, but it does give you sometimes the latest features that are available. And there's a link again in the description below, which takes you to the Garmin forum, which is talks about beta software. And it's up to you if you want to install it, but it's certainly one for those that like to experiment a little bit. So guys, thanks very much. That's the end of the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. Also leave a comment if you've got one below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. I'll speak to you soon.